Hey y'all, how y'all doing? So let me tell y'all what happened. Very recently, I was able to attend a fantastic event, an event I attended the year prior. Immediately thought that I wanted to attend again. So the purpose of the event is to raise awareness for preeclampsia, right? Which we did. And a lot of people said that they really enjoyed the things that I had to say, and the information I had to share. And of course, in that information, I had to share some dating tips. So I was excited to share the dating tips with you guys. And so I had my phone recording my talk. Let me show y'all what happens. Y'all are not going to believe what happened. Let's take a listen. Y'all see that? The hate be hating. Your girl was trying to share some information, and I don't even know how to explain it. So if one of you guys know how to explain this and know some tips to let me know, just please hit your girl up and let her know what may have happened. So clearly, I did not get the audio that I wanted to get, and so I do not have the talk or the full talk. I have clips that some people have shared with me, but definitely not the whole talk that I wanted to share. So that is why I'm here today. Okay. So at the time in which I'm taping this video is actually World Preeclampsia Day. So it kind of works out really well that I'm doing this on the actual day of awareness for the entire world, because preeclampsia is an international pregnancy-related complication that women across the entire world every year are affected by. Up to 70,000 women lives will be lost as a result of preeclampsia annually, and up to 500,000 infants will be lost, unfortunately, because of preeclampsia. So clearly, you guys, it's very clear that this is a very serious condition and one that is worth talking about. Now, we have talked about preeclampsia before from the perspective of Dr. Favela Gary had explained sort of the basic understanding of hypertension and relating that to preeclampsia. So if you have not seen that video and you're interested, make sure you go back a couple of years and you will see that it was one of our earliest videos where we were doing a lot of straight head-on education. So make sure you check out that video. She did a great job in explaining the condition. And recently, with the loss of Dr. Janelle Green Smith, who was a midwife, also her passing resulted in me talking about preeclampsia from just how complicated it can get. And so I had the pleasure recently of being a part of this amazing event. And for that event, I decided to kind of focus on the paternal aspect because oftentimes we talk a lot about preeclampsia from the maternal aspect, but really not a lot of information is shared with regards to the father of the pregnancy. And I have shared before on this platform yet another video that you probably should check out is a video on dad genes. And the point of that video was really to share just the impact, overall impact of dad's health and dad's genetics on pregnancy outcomes, not just the genetic inheritance of the pregnancy, but also the medical complications that can be more common depending on dad's health. And I spent some time talking about dad's age. So today we're going to get into the dating scene because this condition is very serious, as we shared, right? And it adversely impacts especially Black women. And I think with that level of complication and serious adverse outcomes, maybe you want to consider utilizing some dating wisdom in choosing your mate. Maybe this should be a factor in your consideration, or at least be able to gain the information that you need to know what moving forward your potential risk could be. Now, I'm not saying to ask these questions on date number one. You may scare the guy. These are not the questions you ask on the dates where you are really just getting to know the person. That's not what I'm talking about. These are the questions you should probably consider asking when you're starting to get a little serious, where you feel like this may be a potential mate. At that point, you should probably consider asking some of these questions or assessing some of the risk factors. But I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to figure out. Yes, ma'am. The questions you should be asking. But before we get into that, first I want to welcome all those who have joined on the platform. Like, what kind of platform did I hop into? The right place. You hopped into the right place. So for those who are joining us for the right time, you were called to this particular topic. So make sure you sit down, grab a plate, grab a bite, grab a flask of water, and get comfortable. But that being said, thank you for joining on today. And thank you, as always, those who have been on this platform before who are like, this is just exactly how she is. We like a little bit of fun with our education, right? We love a little bit of fun with edifying and empowering. And that's what we do on this platform. We edify, we empower you so that you have better health outcomes, so that you enjoy and you thrive through life. That is our purpose on this platform. We take the science and we help you kind of weed through all the disinformation on the social and the media and the inter and the nets. So that is our purpose here. So go ahead and get comfortable so we can have a good talk about this, right? So this talk is especially for those who have already a known risk factor for preeclampsia. And you may be wondering, well, what are those risk factors? I'm glad you asked. Let's get into it. For those who've never given birth before and your next pregnancy may actually be your first pregnancy, that is a moderate risk factor for preeclampsia. So is being age 35 or older at the time that you would give birth, having a family history of preeclampsia. So your mom may have had preeclampsia or your sister may have had preeclampsia, or you know already that you may potentially be utilizing IVF in order to conceive. That would be a risk factor for preeclampsia. So we're talking about the maternal risk factors, just so you get a sense as to who this topic may be of the greatest importance for. But it's really for everyone because preeclampsia is not discriminatory. So while these are risk factors, there are individuals who don't have any risk factor who may experience, unfortunately, preeclampsia. So one of the most common moderate risk factor that a lot of people have in the United States, just clearly because we have an epidemic of it, is an unhealthy weight. So if you have an unhealthy weight and your body mass index is abnormal in the obesity range, then you are one of many who are at risk for preeclampsia based on that risk factor alone. So there are individuals who are considered to be really high risk for preeclampsia, and that would be individuals who have chronic disease and illnesses. So having certain chronic diseases are risk factors for preeclampsia. So that is your chronic hypertension, your pregestational diabetes. That means you chronically have type 2 or type 1 diabetes. And certainly someone who has certain autoimmune conditions, so like lupus or antiphospholipid syndrome, those tend to increase significantly your risk for preeclampsia. So enough about talking about maternal risk factors. And I should also mention Black women. The reason why I said in the beginning that this particular topic is for you because Black women are the only race ethnic group that is considered to be at risk for preeclampsia. And that has a lot to do with our socioeconomic experience in the US. Okay, I guess that agrees with me. With our socioeconomic experience in the US, unfortunately, that leads to chronic stress that puts Black women, that places Black women at risk for certain type of adverse outcomes when it comes to pregnancy, and especially considering the fact that there is a disparity with the mortality rate of Black women. So it is very much a condition that is very pertinent to the Black experience in the United States. That being said, ladies, I got some tea. Sit down. Let's talk about the dating situation. Okay, so this is the information a lot of people don't talk about. And this is why I wanted to hop on today to make sure you got the tea on preeclampsia, the real tea. So the reason why this came to my mind, let me tell you all the story on this. I know someone who had, for example, the sickle cell trait. And for her, it's really important at the time, it was really important that she avoided to the best of her ability from having a child that would have sickle cell disease. Clearly, we understand there's been lots of advances in research, but it is still a very debilitating and high mortality disease. And so she would evaluate or ask questions with regards to sickle cell during her dating years. She's now married with kids, the kids are healthy. So I have always kind of thought about things from that perspective, like, wow. Now, granted, she's in medicine, so clearly the thought process may be a little bit different from the general public. But I thought it was really a fascinating thought was to really incorporate when you are thinking about having kids, if kids are a part of your goal in life, to really consider things that you should assess with your partners. And so I wanted to give you guys that information so that you feel empowered in. So even if it's not a deal breaker for you, it may just heighten your awareness so that as a couple, you guys know in advance that you both carry risk factors, or maybe just one person carry a risk factor for this particular outcome. And so then you can kind of prepare and do your best to minimize risk with lifestyle, with the things that we know do have a impact on reducing the risk for preeclampsia. So one of the things we definitely know, which is kind of a no-brainer, if a mom has had preeclampsia before, then she is more likely to experience preeclampsia again. That is the same for dad. In fact, the risk of having a subsequent pregnancy affected by preeclampsia would be twice as likely. So if you are dating someone and you guys are getting serious and you may want to procreate with that person and you know that that person is already a father, may have fathered one child, two kids, it doesn't matter, and your health doesn't matter, so you can have the most pristine health. If he has had a pregnancy that was affected by preeclampsia before, then it is twice as likely that he would have that experience again. Now, keep in mind that really the root source of preeclampsia, to the best of our ability, to the now keep in mind that the root source of preeclampsia, to the best of our understanding currently, is the placenta. And a lot of the placenta is paternal genetics. And so it's really important to understand also that his genetics and his health preconception actually does impact the outcome of the pregnancy. So, for example, if dad has any signs of metabolic syndrome or metabolic dysfunction, so he may be diabetic, he may already be hypertensive, he may have elevated cholesterol levels, especially elevated triglycerides. He may have an unhealthy weight. So if he's a little fluffy in the middle, yes, that's a risk factor. And so for the men who have clear evidence of metabolic dysfunction because they have one of those chronic disease or outcomes or an unhealthy weight, that does increase the risk factor for preeclampsia. If he has especially two of those conditions that contribute to metabolic syndrome, then he has a up to 21% chance of having a pregnancy that's affected by preeclampsia, 21% increased risk for a pregnancy affected by preeclampsia. And so that's important to keep in mind, is making sure that you emphasize health in your partner, in your partner or in your potential partner before you guys actually conceive. So we talk about dads carrying the pregnancy for the 9 months prior to the pregnancy and moms carrying the pregnancy after. So it's really important that as a couple, or perhaps not a couple, but as someone who is seeking a partner of any kind, whether donated or not, that you are able to get that type of information. So perhaps if you are looking into getting a donor, gamete, then you would consider asking and seeing if you can obtain that type of information. Does he have any chronic illnesses, especially if he has those, and then you are a Black woman, you may want to consider someone who is healthier. Um, yeah. So it's interesting that we have to keep them in mind. Now, if you guys are together, Definitely make sure you are both exercising before conception. That improves outcomes across the board. So if you guys are together, make sure you're definitely working out, eating healthy before you conceive. Preconception health is so important and can lead to better outcomes. The other thing that came up, and my professor or one of the perinatologists that trained me during residency actually did a study in this particular area, which I thought was really interesting. And it was so funny because he would be so proud of this particular study that he did. And I was like, that's a little nasty. But definitely very pertinent, right? And so I can see why he would be excited about learning these particular connections. And so the third thing that you want to consider is how long you guys have been together, how long you have been exposed to his genetics, read between the line. Now, for women who have been exposed to his genetics for less than 6 months, that seems to be not as protective for preeclampsia. So for those who have been with their partners for 6 months or less, that seems not to be as protective for preeclampsia. If you want a really good protective effect, you would want to be exposed to his swimmers for at least 12 months. The longer have been exposed to his swimmers, tend to get your immune system accustomed to him, and then decreases the likelihood that you or provide some type of protection against conditions like preeclampsia. So that's another thing to keep in mind. It's an interesting fact. I like it. I'm here for it. If it helps to save lives, why not? So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, if you guys have been together already, and you have had a child already, you want to make sure that the duration between pregnancies isn't excessively long. And I say excessively in quotes because, who's to determine what's excessive? But from a biological standpoint, if you are waiting more than 10 years, you are going to really increase your risk for experiencing preeclampsia. One very obvious reason is that you're 10 years older. Let's say your previous pregnancy was at 25, now you're 35. Now you are truly advanced maternal age. Your prior pregnancy may have been at 29, now you're 39. That's definitely significant for advanced maternal age. But even outside of the actual age factor, a longer duration seems to be linked with a higher rate of preeclampsia. So some of the protective effect of being pregnant prior, so being exposed to dad's genetics prior, and I don't know that it's really his genetics that really is the factor in this. I'm just taking an educated guess. That's my hypothesis. It has not been scientifically proven. But let's just say that if you wait a duration for your next pregnancy, even at 5 years, there seems to be a loss of that protective effect from the prior pregnancy. And that becomes even more significant for those who are waiting 10 years or more. So that being said, so definitely when you are dating, you want to know, is this an active person? Especially if you're already someone who's active, you go out, you go on walks, you go to the gym, you have a lot of active groups. You may be a swimmer, you may be someone who hikes a lot, you may be someone who is on an athletic team, you eat very well. Compatibility is more than just, a functional aspect or emotional aspect. Compatibility in lifestyle does actually have some scientific purpose and benefit to it. It improves the outcome of pregnancy. So if you select a partner that is one that is very much either equal or even more focused on health and living a healthy lifestyle, then that's the partner you may want to be with, as long as he's not crazy and has no other red flags, of course. But definitely, I would say take that into consideration because the healthier he is and the better health perspective he has, the better your outcomes are going to be with your pregnancies. So I hope this dating tip helped, and I hope you choose wisely. This is Dr. T, the hand behind the handle of Healthy Bump Club right here on YouTube and Healthy Bump. If you thought this information was helpful, go ahead and click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Give us a thumbs up. And of course, click that bell so that you are one of the first to be notified whenever we do what? Drop another episode. So thank you guys for joining on with us today. I'm so happy to be able to have this platform to share some real life advice for you guys. I know if I knew this information a long time ago, well, it may not have changed my outcome, but at least I would have felt a lot more empowered to know some questions that I really should be asking when I'm dating someone. So I hope that this information is helpful for you. That being said, I absolutely love this platform. Thank you guys for supporting, and I hope to see you guys when the next episode. Enjoy. Bye. This is Dr. T. Just a friendly reminder. Don't forget to comment, like, and share. And go ahead, why not? Click that subscribe button. Help us to get to the next 1,000 subscribers. We thank you guys for supporting.